They may not have some of the necessities to be a field manager or a general manager.
The black is a better athlete to begin with because he's been bred to be that way.
Is America still a racist society? Good evening, I'm Ted Koppel, and this is Nightline. Tonight, we'll look at one American community, Fredericksburg, Virginia, and we'll talk with presidential candidate Jesse Jackson as we focus on relations between black and white Americans today, how much has changed, how much hostility and misunderstanding remain.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
People dance around the issue. They touch on it, allude to it, suggest, hint, imply, anything in short, but address it head on. When people say that Jesse Jackson is unelectable, what are they talking about? The fact that Jackson is black or that he is Jackson? Today seemed an appropriate day to tackle that question, since this is the day we celebrate Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. And I'll raise the question with the Reverend Jackson later in this broadcast. Here we are, after all, 20 years now after King's assassination, and the question of whether his dream has been or is even likely to be attained seems as elusive as ever. It was a question drawn to our attention by a letter sent to me almost 2 months ago by some community leaders from Fredericksburg, Virginia. Their way of life, they pointed out, has changed. There are blacks on the city council now. Their mayor is black. However, their letter reads, we are now asking ourselves, is this enough? Nightline correspondent Judd Rose visited Fredericksburg.
I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream.
Voices from the past, echoes of an American dream. They're everywhere in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Sometimes you can hear them clearly. Sometimes they run silently, just below the surface. According to the legend, George Washington tossed a silver dollar across this river. Washington's mother is buried here. Many others are too. Fredericksburg saw some of the worst battles of the Civil War. Union and Confederate soldiers locked in bloody embrace here 4 times. 100,000 men died.
With all that Civil War history, it's really no surprise that around here, today is known as Lee Jackson King Day. For a long time, Virginians have honored Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson. And 2 years ago, the state added Dr. King. 2 Confederate generals and a civil rights leader. It's an unlikely trio and a compromise holiday, and not everybody around here liked it. But there have been a lot of changes in the past 20 years, and people have learned to accept what they don't necessarily like.
The people in this town have been here for years and years, and we all get along, if you know what I mean.
What about blacks and whites?
No problem.
So it seems at Gulrich's drugstore, where 20 years ago the lunch counter was whites only. Now blacks and whites mingle every day. But listen to what runs just below the surface.
I don't think it was intended for us to associate with them.
Really?
That's my belief.
Explain.
Well, I think if God intended for us to, He made us all one color.
Tyrone and Greg disagree. They're longtime friends.
There's a place that like a lot of teenagers hang out at, and you see a lot of black and white couples there, and then you see a lot of people that like they'll look at you real funny, like that's not supposed to be. It's going to be around for a while, no matter what anyone says.
Across town is Washington's restaurant. The crowd here is mainly black. Some have white friends, at work anyway.
Like you on a job, something like that, they be laughing and joking with you when you get out in the public. They ain't got nothing to say.
Now, come back downtown. Elmer the barber has something to say. He's talking about a black man who had lots of white friends, Louis Ball.
Louis was a landmark institution downtown Fredericksburg. He whistled on the streets. Everybody could hear him for a couple of blocks away, and he made everybody laugh, and people came in here when they was down, and he lifted them up.
He did that for 40 years, shining shoes, cleaning up, cracking jokes.
he would say things like, I'm not like some of my black brothers, I work for a living. Some of them rather be on welfare. And yet what he was doing is holding up the whole sort of stereotype and saying, that's all foolish.
Many blacks had a different view.
Louis Ball made whites, in essence, feel superior because he was willing to demean himself for those white persons who chose to participate in those racial jokes and racial slurs in that white barbershop.
When Ball died last year, his white customers raised money for a tribute, a statue in the park of Louis Ball holding a mop and a bucket. Blacks were outraged.
In other words, they're saying all black people in this town take buckets around and wash, and that's exactly what he was, washing windows, cutting hair, and shining shoes. We don't need that.
After a lot of angry debate, the statue was changed to a plaque, which will go in the barber shop. A small controversy, still it spoke to a larger problem here. Whites and blacks are friendly, but they are not friends.
The blacks and the whites, for all practical purposes, go their own ways. They come together on some jobs, but after the job is over, in terms of their recreational and, in many cases, cultural activities, there is still a division.
There is on the most basic levels. There are separate churches and separate neighborhoods.
I, as a black man, don't know you as a white man, simply because I have no interaction with you. I don't come into contact with you beyond the workday.
And that's not likely to change anytime soon.
Not in this city. I don't believe so.
John Scott is one of the few black lawyers in Fredericksburg. There are some doctors, too, but the white-collar jobs are mainly just that, white. The schools, of course, are integrated, but if you came to school, you'd see that the advanced classes are almost all white. You'd see clubs, activities, and sports teams that have been informally segregated for years.
You would see signs of real tension among the groups that you would hope that you wouldn't see these days. You would even hear comments, I don't want that kid in my group. If I catch that kid in my neck of town, I'm going to beat, the tar out of him.
Our crisis, it seems to me, is that there is no crisis for us to come around. The fact is, if something were to happen in this community that would all of a sudden energize people and say, here's the issue, and I have a point of view on it.
There was a small crisis last year over a measure to reduce the size of the city council. Some in the black community charged it was really a way of reducing the chance of blacks getting on the council. The measure was approved after a polite fight.
This is very polite, and it's, we're not going to discuss racial tensions because there are none. It has been this way for so long, I think, this kind of politeness. I mean, if you open up this door, what are you going to find?
Yesterday, the door was open just a crack. Several hundred gathered for a town meeting in honor of the holiday. There were songs.
We're trying to get the black experience.
Oh, great!
And skits and discussion groups.
We have to first feel that there is a problem before there's an issue. And would you say that there is a problem with this in our community?
Well, I think it's not only a problem in our community, I think it's a problem nationwide. I think there has been some complacency. I think that we have taken too much for granted.
What's been taken for granted is this. Laws have enforced equality, but you can't legislate friendship.
In integration, it is a thing of the heart. It is a thing of one's willingness to reach out and touch another, and that is what we're seeking.
Fredericksburg isn't Harlem or Watts or South Chicago. It's an average town with a quiet problem. On this historic old battleground, the fight is going on just below the surface. Judd Rose for Nightline in Fredericksburg, Virginia.
We'll be joined by Jesse Jackson when we come back in just a moment.
This is ABC News.